Hey, I'm Jonathan, and I live in London, England.
Hey, I'm Jeff, and I live in Perth, Australia.
Together, we are Echo and Sidetrack.
We produce music that sounds like this.
And this.
And even this. This podcast is about music, creativity, and everything in between the giant space that separates us.
Welcome to A Band Apart with Echo and Sidetrack. Welcome to this week's podcast. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening to the tune and supporting Paper Birds. It's been very nice.
It's been really cool to have lots of great feedback on the social media and people telling us in person as well. It's cool.
It's been cool. And excuse me for my possible crappy sound quality. I'm currently in between homes in London, so I'm just recording this in my friend's bedroom with a set of iPod headphones.
And that's exactly the way I recorded my audio for this podcast, Jonathan.
A backyard edition with Echo and Sidetrack. How are you going?
I'm pretty good, man. I'm quite tired, actually. I got up really early this morning to get to a workout before work, and I'm like, yeah, my eyes are just sore. You know that feeling? You're like tired and your eyes are sore, and yeah, it's just a bit of a strange feeling. I think I'm gonna get an early night after we record this, and then hit it tomorrow morning.
You need to put some cucumber on those lids, boy.
Yeah, I might do that when I get home. I've actually just been tinkering in the studio for a little bit and playing with some ideas for some jams to play at the show in August, which we announced this week. Yeah, our first show back and our first show since January. So ticket link in our bio on our Instagram or on our Facebook. Come down and party. It's going to be awesome. It's definitely going to be some new music played from all sorts of people since I haven't really played out. We did the Shock One TV thing, but I'm super pumped to play some loud music in a club and dance with everyone.
And what date is that?
That's on August 15th, Jonathan. It's at the Court Hotel, and it's going to be a goddamn bonanza.
Ooh. It's quite cool. Like, obviously, you can't always play like new music on streams as readily as you can in nightclubs.
Yes, because of the nature of the replayability of a stream and stuff. So the super dubs sometimes don't make it onto the streams.
Yeah. So I got some fire to send you over today, actually.
Woo! But we should probably dive into this week's podcast. It's
yes.
It's the Paper Birds podcast, actually.
This week's podcast is a conversation we had with Ruth Royall, who sung and wrote the lyrics for Paper Birds. And this conversation was had in late May.
Yep. We just finished the tune. We just sent it off to master. And yeah, it's basically a big reflection on the process, isn't it?
Yeah. And you get to hear about Ruth's process and just a fun conversation between all three of us.
Yeah, there's definitely some random tangential things in there. I think I recorded it on my iPhone headphones because I wasn't in the studio.
Yeah, and the whole conversation is recorded through Zoom. So it's not as high quality as our usual, but it's good listening. So bear with the quality.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation. Even listening back to it as we do, in an editing process. We didn't edit any of this, but it's interesting to hear our conversation and talk about our process. And I think this is probably the most we've talked about some of the back and forthing that we sometimes do that gets a tune over the line. It starts with us talking about what we've been doing in lockdown, really. Bear in mind, we've never met Ruth. We've only talked to her on the internet, and we've only met her in April this year. So it's actually quite cool that we could kind of have this.
We've only started talking to her since April this year. We've
actually never met her. Yeah. Yeah, so it was really cool to have this. She's lovely, and I hope you enjoy the following conversation, all about paper birds with Ruth Royall, Jonathan Hanson, and myself, Jeff.
I haven't been the best Jonathan I can be, and now I'm being the best Jonathan I can be. And
I feel like
just,
everything is intensified in lockdown as well. Like when we first went
massive.
into lockdown, we were drinking all the time because it was like, well, how do you tell if it's the evening? We're just going to have a bit. And then we're obviously like in the house and a little bit like stressed about everything anyway. And I was like, yeah, this is maybe not a great idea to be doing this. So then went completely the other way and was like working out all the time and was just like working my tits off in the studio, and then ended up just completely burning myself out. So now I'm like, right, okay, so let's not do that. So let's just try and kind of balance. It's so weird that like normally, I don't know, you just don't do everything to the extreme, but for some reason in this situation, I feel like I've been doing that.
I think it's making us kind of think about what we've done in the past, and it's like, and how we can be better. It's like time for reflection. So, if if you don't work particularly hard, or if you work really hard, you're suddenly at home all the time. So say you're a workaholic and you're working too much, and that stresses your family life out. You're like, okay, well, maybe I'm a workaholic and maybe I need to change that. I think we're all realizing certain things about ourselves and how we do things that's making us want to change, but also change isn't something that can happen in a week. So it has this kind of, you go all the way to the left or you go all the way to the right, and we're all just trying to figure stuff out, I think.
I'll tell you something that I've been doing recently that you should try out. It's really good. I was reading this book called The Artist's Way, and she recommends in the book that you do morning pages. I don't know if you've ever done that before. You just like write stream of thought every morning for like 3 pages. It doesn't matter what it is, like even if it's like, I don't know what to write, blah, blah, blah. And you don't read it, you just literally write it. And it's like, it sort of clears out your mind first thing. And imagine you've kind of got all of these things buzzing around your head, and it just kind of gets it all out, and then you start your day. And I been doing it for about 2 weeks, and it's like, yeah, this is good. Like, feels really good. It's a nice little routine to do in the morning as well, because it's like, it feels like
is that
positive.
Martha Beck?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Is that Martha Beck? Mara Beck?
Julia someone?
Oh, okay.
I'll send you a link.
We heard about that on a recent podcast we listened to, didn't we, Jeff?
We did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that with Russell Brand?
No, it was actually with Tim Ferriss. So
and Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
And she sounds like a fucking G. Like, she's has some great techniques, as well as like just the way she thinks about things. But her life coach is basically the life coach that defined the term life coach, that coined the term life coach. And her name's Martha. Is it Martha Beck? I
think it's Martha Beck.
Is it as in the person that wrote
No.
The Artist's Way?
No, it's not.
Isn't it?
It's just this woman, and she recommends The Artist's Way.
Oh, I see.
Because The Artist's Way is a book, as well as a system that you can follow. Like, it's
almost like a course. That you do, and it's really good. But like the main thing is the morning pages, and taking yourself out on an artist date, which is quite cool. Like, you do something for your creativity, or like your creative self, or like something fun, or it's just really good. And I think it's for me, I've had such a shift recently in like my work of everything is writing, and everything is like creating something. And I'm not doing as much like vocal coaching, and I'm not doing as much like straight up session work. It's more having to create things, which is great, but it's kind of making me take that creative side of my brain more seriously, and like, ways that I can nurture it, and ways that I can look at it more seriously and be like, okay, right, this is a thing that I need to look after. What are techniques that I can use to do that? But so it's a really interesting course.
Is it the course is just in the book, or do you pay money and do a course?
Yeah, it's in the book.
I'm going to buy that book.
You should buy the book. It's very good.
I need to buy another copy. Have you ever read Who Moved My Cheese?
I haven't. Who Moved My Cheese?
Who Moved My Cheese?
Really
It's
good book.
basically just like a very short parable that is all about change and embracing change. And it's really important. But I've been gifted it, and I've gifted it to people, and I recently gifted my copy. The other book that have you ever read that?
No.
It's not a scary book. It's like it's like part memoir, part like how to write, and like basically it's how to create stuff, and it talks about his creative process, and really interesting. And then the other one is
oh yes, I've been recommended that one. Yeah,
that's really good. All of his stuff is really good, actually. He's another very clever man. I feel like we could have lots of conversation. We're not sitting around going, hey, how's the weather?
We're trying to talk about the right thing and just get sidetracked by other things.
Our conversations, our podcasts are quite tangential. Sometimes we have to work hard to stay on target, so to speak.
Awesome. Should we talk about paper birds?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Yeah. How are you guys feeling about it? I love it.
Yeah.
I love what you said. I got really into it. I was just Sam is now really fed up with it because I keep playing it. I'm like, let's listen to Paper Birds again.
I have not reached my what's the word? Critical mass with the song. I listen to it pretty regularly in my car. Like I was listening to a lot of versions. I've recently got a new car that has Bluetooth capabilities, and so I could leave the studio. It's uploaded to Dropbox, and I can listen to it. And I'd always listen to it, and I basically know the point in the drive where certain things happen. If I start it when I leave the studio, and then I'd listen to it on repeat, and then I'd get up in the morning and I'd listen to it, and I've listened to it a lot of times, and I don't know. Maybe it says something about the tune. Maybe it says something about the fact that I really like the tune, but like it hasn't lost its feeling for me.
No.
Yeah. I feel very similar. I think this is the first tune of ours that I've like. I know when we start to come to the point of finishing a tune, we'll listen to it a couple of times before we leave the studio, Jeff, or how we kind of listen to demos maybe, and you realize that you've written something that's quite good. This is, I think, the first tune in a while that we've written that I've listened to when I've felt certain emotions. You know, you put on certain songs when you come home because you want to feel something. Sometimes I'll play like classical music or what's a good example? Like the Interstellar soundtrack. Sometimes I'll listen to just when I'm making dinner. I don't know why. It's just like an epic time. I've listened to Paper Birds going for walks around sunset. And not because I wanted to hear my own music and at that time to see what it felt like.
I'm so good.
I just felt like listening to that song, and I think that's probably this tune is the first time.
That's interesting that you're listening to it around sunset, because when I did the top line, I'd been for a run, and it was dawn, so the lyric "at the dawn" is in there, but that kind of sense of dusk dawn, that there's a particular feeling around that time of day, isn't there, that I had in my head the whole time of writing the lyrics, like a real kind of visual. So it's quite interesting that it's making you want to listen to it around then. But yeah, it's good.
I think feels also like the lyrically it's quite it's almost like the twilight of a relationship, and then you're like it's going into the darkness or into the light, so maybe it is more like the pre-dawn kind of feeling. But it's I've listened to it at work as well. I always try and listen to music outside of the studio, and I've shown people as well. I've literally just sent them the link, and I was like, "Listen to this," and every person has had a reaction that's been emotional and visceral. Like, oh wow, oh man, like this. I really like this. This is like, oh, like there's more to it. They don't just go like, "That's a banger" or "That's a cool tune." It's like, so it's connecting, and I hope it continues to connect.
Mm. But you found it like, this is from watching your stories, which were very entertaining because you were both talking to your stories. But you found it quite difficult, didn't you, to like get to that point of it feeling finished?
Man, this song has we started this song in January last year, and it's kind of been, it hasn't changed that much, Jonathan, based on like the original idea. Like the bones of the idea were there after 10 hours of working on the song.
Yeah, and it stayed in that state basically for a year. That same playable version that we were playing out.
And then when you sent the vocal, Ruth, it was just like the perfect timing to hear something like that for me, emotionally, but also like I asked Jonathan, I sent Jonathan a text that said, "Have you checked out that vocal that, whoever Ruth Royall is just emailed us the vocal?"
Who's that chick?
Yeah, who's that chick? And I was like, "Have you listened to it?" And he's like, "Oh, wow, did you?" Like, "No, I'll listen to it in a bit." And I go, "I'm about to listen to it." And then I listened to it the whole way through, being like, wow, this is, someone has come along and captured the vibe of the tune and like amplified it. Like you haven't just sung words over the song that are in key and sound nice. You've added an extra level of emotion to it. And somehow that emotion was what we tried to inject in it in the first place.
Mm.
I remember you saying the first time we talked about it that you'd had the image of like soaring, and that was always the thing that you were trying to create in the song, and that was literally the visual that I had with the birds and the soaring, and like it's just been so strange how in sync it's been, which I guess comes from the music, like that was telling a story to me straight away. And like there is that kind of sadness to it, but it's also that finding your own light and your own strength, and realizing you can fly, you can become whatever it is you want to become. And it's just amazing, isn't it, how music can communicate that? Because we didn't talk about that before. You just sent me the track.
No, not at all. Sorry, John,
that's what I think what we like to do with vocalists or people we work with is not really give too much of a brief. And it's more just about instinctual how you hear it, and you absolutely nailed it. Like Jeff listened to it and then sent me a message. Well, yeah, like after he listened to it, he sent me a message saying, "Have you listened to it? You should listen to it." And
yeah, like listen to it now. Like stop whatever you're doing, and listen to it now, because I want to have feelings with you, brother. I want to have feelings with you.
So Jeff and I have this bad habit of like, especially Jeff, he loves revealing things. We love revealing things to each other. So instead of messaging me and going, fuck the vocals really good, he just says, "Have you listened to the vocal? You should go listen to the vocal." And so we do that so much in our life. Sorry, my mic's distorting. We do that so much in our life that whenever we just get a blanket kind of, you should go do something, we don't know whether it's going to be a good or bad thing. So I was like, man, like I can hope this vocal's good, because we're getting to a point.
It has been bad in the past. I've gone, check out the vocal, man, and then you've sent me a message going, what the hell was the person thinking?
He sent me a message the other day that just said fuck, and then didn't back it up with anything for a couple of minutes. And I've done the same thing to him, and I'm like, oh my God, like what's happened? Is Jeff okay?
I thought you died the other day.
You did think I died the other day.
Ruth, Jono sends me a message and he goes, this is off tangent, but he sends me a message, goes, sorry man, just out for a walk. I am in the sketchiest neighborhood. South London's got some real shit spots. And then no message for like 90 minutes. And I was like, he has been taken. Someone heard him slag the place off. Someone's stolen his phone. He's laying dead. Jono, are you all right?
And then I replied,
You're just chilling.
I was just chilling in a park. And I was like, oh, sorry, I'm just not looking at my phone. What are you getting so worried about?
I told you.
That's sweet.
Yeah, and we care about each other, which is nice. But yeah, I listened. So I didn't know what to think. And then I listened to it, and I think I just messaged him back being like, wow. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, wow. And you did, like what Jeff said, you completely, we had this, I think part of the reason the song has taken us so long, or maybe that we didn't work on it, like it stayed in this kind of semi-finished state for so long, is because we knew that getting a vocal for it was going to be difficult, and we just didn't know how to go about it. And I think it's a song that's been pretty important to us. And sometimes when you're making something that you really care about, there's a resistance to push it along, because it's in our minds, it's like this perfect idea. You know, imagine if the song had this kind of vocal, or imagine if it was like this. Getting something that wasn't going to meet our expectations was almost too hard to bear. So we kind of put it to the side. And I don't know, man, the feeling of creating something and then
I want to see the actual message. Sorry.
Giving it to someone else and getting it back, and you're just like, yes, you did it. Like, you nailed it. And I think that's such I think it's quite a rare feeling.
There's also a lot of,
I'm happy. I think there was something that was really nice for me as well in the writing process with you, because like sending you the initial vocal and then, you know, having feedback and like working off that, is we weren't talking about how I was singing it. We were talking about why I was singing it, which is such a nice way to approach a song. And I think is that makes it a song rather than like a vocal, or, you know, using a vocal sample, you know, the kind of different ways you can do that. That this was very much like, what are we saying? How are we saying it? You know, why are we saying it? And just really delving into that. And it's just like a whole different way to think about a session when you like sit down to then work on it. You're just in a completely different headspace, and it's just much more organic. And it was really fun. It was a really enjoyable process for me as a songwriter and as a vocalist. I'm really used to collaborating with artists, and you know, generally it's their music, so I'm going to be like respectful and like, of course, you know, I'm going to do whatever you want, and then at the end of the day it's their decision in which direction they go. But with this, everything felt so in sync and so connected that it was really easy to then interpret what you wanted. And it was just really nice coming at it from that angle, coming at it from, what are we saying, you know, what's the intention behind this, rather than I want you to be a bit, I don't know, raspy here, or a bit whatever, you know, using actual sounds of my voice, if that makes sense. But yeah, it was good.
I think for us, it's always very important to come at things from like a organic place and a authentic place, because that's the way you're going to get performances, or that's the way you're going to achieve the most real and true version of that idea. Like, there are circumstances that if you want something stylistically, like if for some reason we wanted you to sing it in some sort of like, I don't know, jazz tone or something like that, maybe we'd ask you, but we'd probably just go find a tortured jazz singer and get them to sing it, that kind of thing. Like it's much better to attack things with feeling and talk about stuff for us in like a philosophical way or like that kind of way, to I think that stuff gets like embedded into the song somehow.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
like if we're all feeling the same thing or going after that, it just naturally gets embedded because we all have different interpretations of different feelings, and how you express sadness might be completely different to how I express sadness. And if I try to tell you how to express sadness, then the sadness isn't authentic.
Mm.
So it's like you have to just, through discussion and through going back and forth, you have to make sure everyone kind of gets to the space where they're feeling the same emotion in their own way, and then can represent that however they do.
Yeah, definitely.
That's so important. I just trawled through our long WhatsApp chat and I found the moment. We were selling our merch, and then just like in the middle of merch talk, I'm like, "Oh man, that girl sent a vocal." And you're like, "Yeah, good or bad?" I was like, "Fuck that, just take a listen. Call me." And then I say, like type some of the words. I'm like, "At the dawn, the birds fly a circle overhead." Then I'm like, "Fuck, the letters I sent," and that's such a, like, I like just, smiley face with hearts as eyes. And then Johnny, your response is like, "Wow, that is, yes, that is a vibe." And then then the next sentence is, "There's a few bits of feedback." So it's like we're really into it, and then it's like, "Oh, I've got some things to say about it." But it's that all happened over like 10 minutes.
That's good.
So it's just like,
Feedback's good though. It's like, if you can't have feedback, then you shouldn't be writing songs.
I feel like sometimes my brain is too geared towards feedback. Like I don't sit with the music sometimes long enough. It's like I hear it and then I go, oh, I'm already thinking about how it can be better. I'm thinking things that I want to change. And sometimes, and sometimes just need to not give feedback. Like I'm talking not just in music as well, sometimes in life. Like someone will do something and I'm like, I've got some feedback straight away. Rather than listening. And I think that's probably come to a bit of a habit because we do so much feedback.
My Zoom is telling me it's gonna run out of thingies. So hang on, give me X, and I need to do a thing.
Apparently Zoom had some really strange privacy issues. Like you could literally enter Zoom and then like Zoom address with any kind of series of numbers, and you could join a Zoom.
Oh, really?
You could see stuff. Yeah, that was one of its
major.
Credit card fraud, Zoom fraud.
I'd be the worst hacker. I'm a bit dyslexic with numbers, so I'll look back to front.
I would be terrible. I would require a very 90s view of hacking. So I'd require a lot of visuals, and like I'd want my graphic user interfaces to be immersive. I couldn't just sit there and look at a command prompt. I'd be like, I've made an error. What was I doing? Where was I trying to go? I'm definitely not
then you'd have
up to standard. Yeah. It'd be a lonely life as well. I often, what a ridiculous conversation. I sometimes think like, could I have a more criminal or like aspect to my life? Like, could I be someone who like, I'm in the import-export business or something ridiculous and like sell illegal somethings? And then I'm like, I think it'd be too stressful. Like, I value doing interesting stuff and creating stuff and everything else around normal life that I wouldn't, for everything that the illegal life would bring, which is probably just money.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be worth it at all. Like, I'd hate to be always looking over my shoulders or be like, oh yeah, we killed that guy and now we have to worry about him killing us. but we'll come back with more force.
God, I'm too honest for that. That is into the point that I screw myself over. Like, take too many of the free olives. And I'm like, I should give some back. And Sam's like, oh, free. I just don't want to make a fuss,
Spitting them back.
So sorry, guys. I'll pay. I've been watching. Do you guys watch Ozark on Netflix?
Yes.
I'm only up to season 1.
Yeah.
Have you still not started season 2?
No, I hit what I thought was the finale, and then it went to the next episode, and I was like, man, like I want to commit and I want to continue, but like there's so many shows to watch.
I'm really into
time.
Ozarks, man, is so solid. Like I've started season 3.
They can do all the crime, and I'll be like, I just sit here under my blanket.
Yeah, it's safe.
And get paid though. Like imagine you could work it. You get paid a little. So where were we before you were about to hand over some illegal credit card numbers?
Oh yeah. I wanted to ask you as well, because that's like part of the process that I didn't see and like wasn't involved in, and it's interesting of like when you were getting it all finalized and finished, and like I saw there was a little bit of back and forth, and you guys it took a little while, I guess, to know it was finished, and I just saw the nice shiny lovely sounding things at the end, which obviously that took a while to get to, so it's just interesting to hear the process that you went through with that.
So usually the process with us is Jeff is probably more of the has more of an engineering ear than me. So he's usually the one that finishes the songs and I offer feedback on what he does. So this song had been worked on by both of us, me in London, Jeff in Perth, pre-vocal. And then once we got the vocal from you, it basically 100% went to Jeff, because the idea was to plonk the vocal in, comp it, process it, and then we'd have the finished tune. So in this process, what I think happens to anyone working on something by themselves is they get too much in the into the process. Like a great thing of a partnership is what Jeff and I have is when I go too deep into something or just go into like a ridiculous zone, Jeff is the one to pull me out. And when Jeff goes into a ridiculous zone, I'm the one to pull him out. So what happened, and part of the reason why we had those kind of back and forths on Instagram, is that Jeff worked very, very hard and did amazing work, but he pushed the song sonically too hard to a point, and that's what caused I think it was like a Wednesday night, and you worked really, really hard on it, and he sent me a version, was like, I think this is done, I'm really happy with it, and I listened to it, and I also posted on Instagram like I think this is really close to being done. And you're very happy with it, and you're like, I've been in here for 10 hours, and I'm
it was like I sent it to Jono for some feedback.
But feedback in terms of like,
is it done? Approval.
Is it? Yeah. And when I listened to it, I had some notes, and I also sent it to one of our friends who we trust with some feedback, who I know, I actually specifically sent it to him as well, Jeff, because I know that you would take his feedback and my feedback, and if we weren't saying similar things, maybe you would react to it a bit better. So I then listened to it, sent Jeff feedback. I actually wrote.
It's funny because you wrote on Instagram, you wrote some comments that weren't related to the song, but like you were talking about the process.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find the pictures. and then you're like, oh, sometimes you got to go back and forth. And I basically woke up and like looked at my phone because I was like hoping for like literally a message from Jonathan on Slack being like, bang, man, we finished it. This is amazing. And it was like several Instagram stories talking about feedback and like, oh, the process, and we're edging closer, and it's really nice to work back. And I was just like, what the fuck, mate? You're meant to just say yes.
But then you got the Slack, which was like 3 paragraphs of feedback plus me having written over the version that Jeff sent me, being like, this needs to be brighter, this needs to be pushed, we need to do this, we need to do this.
Try these drums.
Try these drums. Like songwriting changes of things that we bounced stuff. We had bounced stuff like months ago. And I was now saying we need to change this. Like I've written a new build up. I've done this. I basically wrote a different intro, or like a very different intro. And Jeff called me on the Thursday morning, which is in the studio, and it started off. I remember I think that's the only fight, the thing that we've kind of, I would refer to a fight that we've had since for like 3 months, for a while. Which is really good, because sometimes, especially with music, we can become quite heated. But it did get to a point of Jeff yelling and being like, "Fuck you," and me yelling and being like, "You're fucking," like, I know I'm right, and like this.
Can I tell my perspective on that? Like, so I had all this feedback, and like, I had felt like I had gotten to the end of the finish race, end of the line, and then I've like crossed the line and been like, oh man, I looked up at the clock and been like, I did a pretty good time as well, like, and then sat down and like and then I'm like, why? Oh man, I must be so far out in front that no one else is here. I won the race. And then someone's gone, what are you doing? You've got another 55 laps left. It's a marathon, not a thing. And I've just gone, fuck this shit. I think you're wrong about this. I think you're wrong about that. Like, you're not hearing it right. Like, and I'm like, you might be right about that. Happy to look back at it. But like, man, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Like what you're suggesting is 30 hours work, not a few hours of changes. And in that argument that we had in the studio, when I was yelling and you were yelling, John, I was like, I felt like Jonathan was almost in some way like roadblocking the completion of the tune. And I was like pushing, it was up to me to finish the song. But really, and after we calmed down, I could look at it and be like, I have to address these things, because if I'm honest with myself and I A/B version 3.18 with version 3.06 and version 0.63, I can hear things that he's saying, and I can hear that I've pushed the tune into this area where we didn't want it to go. So one of the main things with this tune is we've always tried to ride that line between it being too much of a quote-unquote liquid tune and a tune that sounds like us, and a tune that might sound like just a nice facsimile of someone else's music.
Mm-hmm.
And I really pushed it into this spot that sounded like quite like too liquidy. And John was like, you've killed some of the drums. Like, you've smoothed everything out. It's really nice, but it's like, it sounds a bit like, John, the word that like hit me, you said, it sounds a bit soulless. And I was like, oh man, I've killed, not only have I killed the song, someone else has told me I've killed the song. And like, the initial reaction is just like, I think I sent a message to John and go like, if this is not it, then I'm fucking done, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want any part of this tune. You can finish the song. I'll send you the stems. and you can finish the song, and I'm just done. But then in the end, I sent you the project, so you could write some stuff over it. I went back to an older version. I got drums from the older version. I rebounced the ARP. I refound the balance of some sounds, and through the process of working for another 2 days, and then into the weekend, I finally said to Jono, after he'd sent me some stuff back, all this is probably begrudgingly for a little while, but then I started seeing through the process that actually this is going to be way better. And then I remember probably sending you another message, Jono, and being like, I think I've unlocked the tune. And I think I've unlocked the new version, because we've unlocked this tune 8 times before. But like finding the balance of drum aggression, how the vocal wanted to work, and also like by changing around the intro, we had built the dynamic lift of the tune a little bit. It made more musical sense,
and it was a bit more exciting.
It was a lot more exciting.
It was
I like the
to
intro. It's great.
It was definitely not soulless.
I've just found some of the messages between Jeff and I, and basically what we're gonna do is pick it up. We're gonna pick it up to, I think we've been yelling and I've hung up on Jeff.
I feel like people are seeing behind the scenes on how we work, John. It might not be so.
Jeff messaged me, this is roadblocking this tune. Somehow we're managing to fuck up this song. I'm going to let go of it. Fuck you, man. Fuck your parts. I've been over this song. I've been over this 50 versions of this song, and now we have to go back. Oh my God, this song is a nightmare. I can't hear it with your ears. I thought reading the feedback would calm me down. But it hasn't.
That's so hard, man. It's so hard to hear feedback when you've been locked into a space,
man. And I know it's especially more part of the reason why I was almost nervous to give Jeff feedback is that I can't, if I am there in person, I can say you go off and do something else for an hour. I'm just going to move these bits and see if I can do my mix of it, which is eventually what we did with he sent me the project.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Slack conversation, and there's actually after that, we talked on the phone, and then I was like, hey, here's the project. I need you to push this.
Yeah. It's also, I think it's when you hear something, I mean, obviously you guys are brothers, so you've got that another level of being able to be honest with each other. But when I work with Paper Dragon, and we have that same back and forth of tracks, and it's not quite ready yet, or it doesn't feel ready, and someone's literally just spent a whole day working on something, and then it will come back, and you've got 3 people giving feedback, and I'm not always brave enough to be I don't like that, because I know that they'll have spent 6 hours or whatever working on that thing, and it'll have lost something, because I'm very much a songwriter, and so I'm always thinking about the song, and I'm always thinking about the structure of the song and how it tells a story, and working with 3 producers who are all about the sonics and all about getting the sounds right and all of that side, which I don't hear in the same way, that I'm not brave enough to be no, you've lost the song. The song's, it's not there anymore. It's really important that we have that. And I do think it is a really hard thing to do on both sides, to hear it and also to give that feedback. But it is sometimes what it needs, what the songs needs. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about the song.
You have to serve the song, and countless times on this, we would come back to being we're not serving the song. What do we want the song to be? And we've pushed it over, or we're not pushing it enough. It's it sounds a bit, and no amount of work you've done on something should ever justify the merit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's like sticking a bunch of plugins on your vocal on a chain. Look how much work processing I've done on this. It
Yeah.
must be good. You're like, it sounds better without it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes hard to swallow. And that's what I mean with this project. There was, oh my god, there was like it got to version 90 something, and this is not versions, this is like saves, so just like Control S, new number, because I've done something enough that it's worth saving.
Yeah.
It got to version 90. Jono said, this has lost some vibe. I think we need to go back to 63. And I was like, okay. Yep, cool. And so I bounced some stuff from 63 and from 90, and I combined them. I didn't tell him I combined them, but I did.
63 is also like
The one we'd been playing.
the one we've been playing, so like more than 6 months back
Yeah.
of working on them.
Right.
And then the version 90, the combination version, I called it version 100. And then I got to version 116. And then I was like kind of playing some stuff, and Jono was like, I think you've pushed that too much, but I like what you're doing here. This is really close. And then I stepped off from that version up to 200 because I'd made two choices in the path that were doing something different. In the end, I did those steps again. I went up to 300. So there was like, which was based on the reference from I remember all these fucking numbers. 206, because 206 was doing something different. And then 300 went all the way to 318. And 318 is the one that Jono said, you've killed it. It's soulless. And so I'm like, where do I go back to? At what point did the soul exist? Was it at 200? Was that this thing? I'd have to look at where it all came from. But it became, and this is also getting into like bouncing stems and like, I ended up going, I think the furthest I went back to go get some arpeggiator in the song, I went all the way back to like the raw MIDI, turned off a bunch of processing, and probably in version 53 or something.
So how did you know, like both of you, how did you know when it was there?
Because you play it and it sounds ridiculous, but it just sounds good.
Yeah.
Like
were you both on the same page? Like when you got to that?
I thought 318 sounded great. And then after we argued and I gave him the project and I said, fuck you. And I told my other friend as well. And he was like, dude, you have to let go of this song. I think you just like, it's good. It's a really good song. It's this kind of a song. And I was resolved to that. And then I was like, I can't listen to this song anymore. Like, and then when I went back and opened, 206, if I stepped off from there, I was like, I hear what he's saying now. Wow, I have killed the song. Okay. And that's when I started thinking more about the song again and being like, I have to serve the song. This song can sound really good. We've got this amazing vocal. If we get the mix right on this and don't make it too light, it can sit in this pocket of music that is neither, just a rolling piano and bass piano and bass kind of liquidy tune, and not a squeezed pop, I don't know, something else, whatever. And you asked when I knew that the song was nearly done, it would be when, after I'd done that feedback from Johnny, that 318 to 206, he'd done some stuff. He'd sent me some new parts and we changed around the intro. And then I was like, holy shit, this is actually moving forward. This is coming together. And then I bounced the version and listened in the car and I was like, yeah, there's no resistance to move forward and there's no resistance to go back. Like, I'm like, there's no way we're going back again on this. Like, and not because I don't want to go back. It's like, this is the actual path.
Yeah.
I think you can sometimes be blinded to what a song needs, or like moving forward with art, because it's like you deep down know that it's not right, but you don't know how to get it right. So you tell yourself that it's fine.
Right.
And I think we all do that. And I
which
think,
causes frustration.
yeah,
Which
which
is
causes,
probably why I got so angry. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, I know it's not very good, but I just want you to say this.
but
Yeah,
because
I've had that before. Totally.
and I
I
think
know,
like
but I don't want you to tell me.
Yeah,
exactly, it's almost like frustration at
It
yourself.
hurts my feelings.
And I think what's really important, and probably a skill that Jeff and I do have because we are brothers, is to say, this doesn't sound good, I don't like it. For one of us to say, to be like, fuck you, I hate you, no, and then come back and go, okay, now that I've got that out of my system, now that we've got that out of the system, let's look at it. Maybe you're right. Like, one thing we try to say to each other is, when we're giving feedback, is like, I love you, but this. So it's not like I'm trying to hurt his feelings by saying,
Yeah.
this is shit. I'm saying, I love you, but we need to do this. And then when we relook at it, we always used to say things like what? Imagine, especially for feedback. Imagine if I'm 100% right about all this stuff. Let's live in a world where I'm 100% right, and let's just see if it works.
Mm.
Because if you apply something, if something doesn't sound good, and one of us suggests to change it, if it's a simple enough change, change it. If it sounds better, it sounds better. If I was suggesting in my feedback, we need to change the key of this song, like we need to rewrite this whole song, yeah, that's not going to happen. But if it's as simple as maybe turning up the drums or maybe replacing the snare, those things can kind of be tried. And one of the things we did was we got on a Zoom. I shared my screen with Jeff and some of the changes I'd done.
Yeah.
And so I got him to apply, whether it was some of the EQs or some of the processing that I'd done to the project that was on the main studio computer. So I could say, like, I put I replaced the intro bass from a chord with an actual bass, so that the bass was more mono rather than more of a stereo sound being done by the chord. And I could kind of show him exactly how I was processing it, and he could redo that in real time and be like, oh yeah, that does sound better. I hear that sounds better. Rather than being like sending him a bunch of instructions.
Yeah.
And him not, like,
Which is also quite overwhelming to, like, well, I don't know if it's me because I'm a bit dyslexic, but like, to get feedback in written form is actually really overwhelming. And like,
Yep.
I don't know if you guys are the same, but I find it much easier when someone shows me or I can hear
Massively.
it. I'm like, oh yeah, great, I see what you mean. But when it's like, even with vocals, like when I get feedback in sort of long emails, it's so much easier if someone just sings a voice note, even if they're not a singer, because I can just get what they mean. Like if it's like melody or they're just explaining it to me in a voice note, I'm like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. But because people are usually quite shy about singing, I don't get that very often. But yeah, it can be quite overwhelming, like having an email of instructions.
Yeah.
Because you're already looking at it, like visually, you're already looking at it like it's a list. It's like someone hands you, like you can see the shapes of, like we've all received an email that we thought was going to be a quick reply, and then you've opened it, and then you've been like, wow, there's too much, like, instant thing is there's too much text here.
Yeah.
What are they saying? Oh, they're crazy. I'm in trouble. I've done something wrong. I've deleted everything.
Yeah.
Jono, I've just looked back through our Instagram story. There's a moment when on like May the 8th, quite late at night, I recorded a story that said, I think I've unlocked the song. And that was the final time that we went backwards.
Yeah.
And then I went forwards a few things and I sent you a version and you're like, huh, yeah, this is sick. Yeah, I've got a few little bits of feedback, but that was the feedback I wanted to get 30 versions ago. But, that's how we knew it was edging towards this moment.
I think this
I think
is going to...
it's better than I expected. The
Yeah.
tune, honestly, has come. It exceeded my expectations as soon as it had a vocal. To be honest, Ruth, as soon as it became more than what it was, and that's really special. But also the process that I went through, the grinding in the studio to get it sounding how we wanted it to sound. And, I had to kind of ask myself pretty recently as well, like, did I think that the song would sound like this? I'm like, probably not. And I'm really happy that how it does sound.
Do you think, Jeff, the song would sound the same if I wasn't in London?
No,
Like if we were both there.
no, it would sound different. It would say the song would not sound the same if I'll give you three things that the song would sound different. If I hadn't have just had a relationship end, if I hadn't have had more time due to COVID-19 and less things on the weekend, just like more time to sit in there and do. And then if I also didn't have this strange, if you were here, Jono, there would have been that thing where we work on the project separately. And again, the tune could have split multiple ways, and you would have it would have been a compromise where the solution would have been like that. We both met in the middle lower rather than working together to make something that's like better. Because the fact that you gave me feedback and I just kept going back in and like I was pushing the vision, there was no I was able to stay on track with it as well, and I could leave the studio and be like, I need to do that, I need to change that. And I mean, I don't want to overstate the importance of that either, because it was such a collaborative thing that I was really just I was just the guy that bashed his head against the wall for 60 hours while you did other stuff, and but gave feedback. But it's important that I bashed my head against the wall, because we could have been bashing different holes in the wall if we had been both bashing our heads against the wall.
I think if I was there, I wouldn't have. I reckon I would have offered up my other version, and we would have had a blow up. We would have had 3 or 4 blow ups for every different version I sent you back. I remember the first version that I sent you, where I replaced the arc with that like guitar thing. I was trying to push the idea of having this like brighter up. That was in January or Feb. I would have done that on your version, on the main computer, and you would have been like, "What the fuck?"
Even the drums you sent back, as recent as like the start of the end of March, really. I was like, "Nah, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. Like, this is," and like it became quite hard to find the cohesive vision. But we kept just talking to each other about it can't be this.
Yeah.
It was more about what it's not than what it could be.
Yeah.
Because we felt like we were pushing into. I mean, it's not. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's a fucking drum and bass song. But if for us, it was going into territory where we're trying to find this balance of something that sounds like us and is a lovely song too.
I think
the Zoom's going to run out of time again.
8 minutes.
8 minutes, yeah. But I think in terms of like chopping the video up, I've got loads that I can do. Do you think? Can you send me the stories, the Instagram stories?
Yeah, sure.
Can you download those? Just because I think it'd be quite cool to have like, because it is like a bit of a video diary that you've done, and then I can put that in before the video, and I think it would look cool.
Yeah, sure. It sounds good. It's oh man, I mean they're all on the story. They're all on the stories. I don't have any just like private videos.
No, I don't mean that. I just mean the stories that you did, because they
yeah.
But
Perfect.
yeah, wicked. I mean, it's great. I really like hearing your process. I think it's like, obviously it's been difficult for you guys to get to the point of finishing it, but it's been worth it in my mind because it's a wicked
Man,
song.
you came in. We did all this heavy lifting and straining to get this like
And then I
absolute
just waltzed in.
mule. No, like we've been pushing an elephant and dragging an elephant up the hill, and then you came along and said, "I've got a little cart that's going to make this easier," and we said, "You what?" And then you've helped us, and it's just and then the elephant got turned into gold along the way. Consequently weighing heavier, making it harder to lift, but well worth it. Wow, I really stretched that analogy, didn't
I was going to say that went deep.
We wouldn't have the tune where it is without you. I think it's completely become it's exceeded our expectations of what we initially wanted, but it's exactly like it's what we dreamed that it would kind of sound like. And it's very rare that your expectations of a tune are ever exceeded. Usually you're like, you finish something and you're like, yeah, this sounds good. And it's become something different. But this has become kind of what we set out for it to become, but even more so. So
Oh, well, that's
thank you.
great. I'm
Thank
really
you for
pleased
that.
about that.
And thank you, Jeff, as well, for that. Because I feel like this song has been a lesson in communication for us and a step forward in our communication skills.
I totally agree. Like it's quite rare when expectation meets reality, but I think this is one of those moments where it's like, oh wow, this came together. And it's funny.
Yeah.
Like anyone listening to the tunes probably just like, oh, it's a nice song.
Or maybe some people are going to not like it.
We've got the song with Be Free by Paper Dragon that was an absolute pain in the ass to make, and it's had like the most streams of any of our tunes, and like was the one that got us noticed in the beginning. We were like, oh, okay, well that was good at least.
Hopefully that happens.
Many hours in a studio disagreeing over a tiny sound of a guitar.
Yeah, it's all for something, and that's the other thing that feels right about this song. Is like, we had been sent other versions of vocals. None of them had really grabbed us. Yours came along. It was perfect. Then we changed the arrangement and we worked on some extra words, which I feel really like hold the, solidify the meaning. And then, the music came along to it and everything just kept going. And it's like, I've heard, I think it was Robert Downey Jr. talking on Joe Rogan's podcast, talking about like sometimes you got to like finding an invisible thread. It's like this little thread, the golden thread. And like, if you can find it and then follow it, then you're like, that's your like path.
Yeah.
You're like, on this really magical thing. And I think, there were times when I dropped the thread because I pulled it too hard. But I think we really found it with this, and it wouldn't have been finished in any other way under any other circumstances to sound exactly like it does. And I really, really hope that other people like it.
I'm sure they will. I hope they will.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on your podcast app and keep up to date with all new episodes. They're going to be coming out once a week. We are Echo and Sidetrack on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, we are Echo Sidetrack. Go listen to our music on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube, or wherever your ears consume happiness. Lots of love, people.